Welcome to a Deep Dive. You've brought us a really interesting stack of recent news items about AI, all pulled together from just one day, June 10th, 2025.
That's right. And the idea here is to take these headlines you found, look closely at what the sources are actually saying, and really unpack what's important. Try to connect the dots because things move so fast in this space.
It really is quite a snapshot, isn't it? I mean, we've got everything from like new robot ideas and what the big tech companies are planning,
Uh-huh.
all the way to how AI is being used and sometimes, well, misused out there. Plus some surprising stuff about infrastructure just shows the sheer breadth of what's happening, literally day by day.
Exactly. So we'll look at some unexpected hardware developments, some big strategic moves from companies like Meta and Apple, see how AI is impacting things from, scams to exams, and even touch on some pretty fundamental infrastructure shifts.
Okay, let's jump right in with this first one. It feels a bit out of left field. Hugging Face, everyone knows them for software, right? Models, the whole open community thing.
Yeah, primarily software, definitely.
But these sources are talking about hardware now. Robots, what's that about?
Well, what really jumps out from these reports is the price. Hugging Face has apparently shown prototypes for a humanoid robot around $3,000.
3,000, okay.
Get this, a tiny desktop one for just $300. The stated goal, they say, is to really democratize robotics.
Democratize. What does that actually mean for, say, someone just exploring AI, maybe tinkering with robotics?
It means potentially lowering the barrier to entry quite dramatically. Getting your hands on capable robots has usually been super expensive.
Right, like university labs or big companies only.
Exactly. So these kinds of price points could open up platforms for experimenting, for education, for hobbyists, really a much wider group.
Yeah.
The insight here, I think, is that as AI gets smarter, making the actual physical hardware affordable too, that could seriously speed up innovation in personal robotics, maybe in ways we haven't even thought of yet.
That does feel like it could be a big deal. Okay, shifting gears though, from exciting potential to something, well, much more concerning. These sources also talk about the darker side, AI-driven scams.
Yes, and this is clearly a big challenge, and it seems to be getting worse. The reports say criminals are getting pretty clever, using generative AI to create really convincing fake student identities.
Fake students.
Fake students, and then using these identities to enroll in online classes, online institutions, basically to steal financial aid money.
Wow, that's incredibly worrying. So AI isn't just a tool for creation, it's also becoming a powerful tool for fraud.
Precisely. And what this really highlights is the urgent need for schools and financial systems to beef up their identity checks.
Right.
And it also means we need better tools specifically designed to spot AI-generated fakes or behavior that signals fraud. It's like a constant cat-and-mouse game, really, a new kind of digital security arms race.
And speaking of trying to control AI misuse, these sources mention something pretty drastic happening in China related to exams.
That's right. During the Gaokao, China's huge national college entrance exams, incredibly high stakes.
Yeah.
Major tech companies, think Baidu, Alibaba, ByteDance, Tencent, even Moonshot, they reportedly acted together. They temporarily shut down specific AI features.
Shut them down. Which ones?
Particularly things like image analysis or, complex question answering. Basically, anything a student might try to use to cheat. If users tried to feed exam stuff into these tools, they apparently just got messages saying the service was suspended.
Wow. Like a nationwide pause button on certain AI functions just for that event?
It's pretty remarkable, yeah. Shows a level of control and coordination between the tech companies and the government, all driven by concerns about academic integrity. It really underlines this global challenge. How do you balance the amazing things AI can do with the need to stop it being misused, especially in critical areas like education?
Okay, let's zoom out a bit now and look at the big players, the ones really driving this AI race. These sources have some pretty significant news about Meta. Zuckerberg is apparently putting together a dedicated superintelligence group.
Yeah, that's a very strong signal about where Meta is heading strategically. They're explicitly saying they're prioritizing the chase for artificial general intelligence, AGI.
AGI, that's the idea of AI matching or even surpassing human intelligence, right? Still sounds a bit sci-fi.
It does, but that's the goal they're stating, creating AI that can understand, learn, apply knowledge across, well, pretty much anything a human can do. And the reports say Zuckerberg himself is personally recruiting, looking for about 50 top people for this group.
So what does this focus push for Meta really mean in the grand scheme of things right now?
It shows they're throwing serious weight behind pushing the absolute frontiers of AI research, consolidating their talent, their resources from different AI teams. And the sources also mention a massive investment, potentially over $10 billion.
10 billion.
Reported investment into Scale AI. There's a big AI data platform company.
Yeah.
And there's even speculation its founder, Alexander Wang, might actually join Meta.
Billions just for data and research teams really puts the scale of this ambition into perspective. And speaking of big numbers and just how intense this competition is getting, the sources also touch on OpenAI's finances.
Yes, they're reportedly hitting $10 billion in annual recurring revenue, which is like nearly double what it was the previous year.
Wow.
And the projections cited in these reports are just astronomical, potentially figures like $125 billion by 2029. So you connect that to Meta's huge spending, their AGI focus, it just paints this picture of immense financial stakes, fierce competition at the very cutting edge.
And it's not always smooth sailing, right? The sources mention disagreements.
Yeah, exactly. They even note a public sort of spat between Jan LeCun at Meta and Dario Amodei from Anthropic. It just shows that even the leaders in the field don't always agree on the best way to get to, advanced AI.
So it sounds like a whirlwind of money, ambition, strong opinions, all chasing this AGI goal.
Absolutely. It's that mix, the explicit AGI targets, the massive cash injections, the crazy revenue growth, even the public debates. It all just underscores how incredibly dynamic and high stakes things are with these tech giants right now.
And it's not only about the algorithms and the models, is it? The underlying hardware, the infrastructure, that's got to keep up. These sources mention IBM and quantum computing. How does that fit in?
Yes, IBM has laid out what looks like a pretty ambitious roadmap. Their plan is to deliver the first large-scale error-corrected quantum computer. They're calling it Starling, aiming for 2028 with cloud access maybe by 2029.
Error-corrected quantum computer.
Oh, okay.
That sounds something. Why is the error-corrected part so important, especially thinking about AI's future?
Oh, it's absolutely fundamental. Quantum computers are inherently noisy, prone to errors. Error correction is the key to making them reliable and scalable, moving them beyond just fragile small experiments.
Oh.
So if they can actually achieve this, like Starling aims to do, they're talking 200 logical qubits that can perform accurate calculations that could just unlock completely new computational power for problems that are totally impossible for today's best supercomputers.
Like what kind of problems?
Things like designing new materials, discovering drugs, maybe even breakthroughs in AI algorithms themselves, complex simulations. So the insight here is that the computing power AI might have access to soon. It might not just be getting incrementally better, it could potentially take a massive leap.
A whole new level of computing power. That's, yeah, staggering. Okay, let's pull it back to something maybe a bit more familiar. How AI is showing up, or maybe not showing up in the gadgets we use every day. Apple's WWDC announcements are in these sources, and they say Apple went, quote, light on AI.
That seems to be the general take reported, compared to some competitors making huge splashes about their big language models. Apple's presentation, according to these sources, focused more on things like UI changes, this new liquid glass look for iOS 26, and privacy updates. The speculation is maybe they're still finalizing their big AI strategy behind the scenes.
But they didn't totally ignore AI, did they? The sources list some specific things they did announce?
No, they didn't ignore it. There were definitely integrated AI features mentioned. Things like on-device live translation, keeping it private on your phone, visual intelligence, where the phone can kind of understand what's on your screen so you can ask questions about pictures or text.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and AI-powered actions in the Shortcuts app, letting developers tap into their on-device model through new framework, and even an AI workout buddy on the Apple Watch that uses your real-time health data.
Okay, so it sounds like they are putting AI in, but maybe differently, more focused on privacy, maybe weaving it into the experience rather than having one big standout AI model.
That really seems to be the key takeaway from these reports, yeah. Apple looks like it's taking a more deliberate privacy-first approach, integrating AI deeply into the hardware and the OS. Less about the flashy chatbot, more about enhancing what the device already does. Could be a sign of bigger things coming, sure, or maybe just a different philosophy than the others.
Speaking of the others and potential disruption, these sources bring up something pretty significant about Google's AI search features and the impact on publishers.
Yes, this is a huge point of discussion and definitely a concern raised in these reports. There's new data suggesting that Google's AI overviews, those summarized answers that pop up right at the top of search results.
Yeah, I've seen those.
Well, they seem to be leading to a pretty significant drop in people actually clicking through the traditional links to news sites and content websites.
So instead of clicking the link to read the full story, people just get the answer from the AI summary and stop there.
Exactly. And the sources detail how this is causing, like, plummeting referral traffic for publishers, for news outlets. It hits their whole business model, which often relies on people visiting the page to see ads.
Hmm.
And while Google apparently claims these AI overviews actually increase overall search use, these reports are showing publishers, even major ones like the New York Times, are seeing their share of traffic from search going down.
That feels huge, like a fundamental shift in how we find and maybe even pay for information online. Potentially existential for some
It
publishers.
really is. The insight here is pretty stark. AI isn't just changing what information we find, but the very mechanics of how we find it. And that disruption has massive ripple effects for anyone creating content online who depends on search traffic. It raises a really critical question. How are content creators, big and small, going to adapt if that traditional path from search engine to website changes so drastically?
Yeah, it forces a whole rethink of that online ecosystem. Okay, let's touch on just a couple more points from these Juneteenth sources. They show AI creeping into different areas, including government. The UK government is apparently using AI for infrastructure planning.
Yes, they are. According to the reports, they're piloting Google's Gemini AI, using a tool called Extract to try and speed up how they assess planning applications for big projects, new roads, railways, housing developments, that sort of thing.
How does an AI even help with sorting through planning documents? That sounds complicated.
Well, the sources explain Extract uses Gemini's multimodal capabilities. Think of it like the AI being able to understand different types of information at once.
Okay.
So it can read text, sure, but also interpret diagrams, maps, even if they're blurry, apparently maybe even handwritten notes. It takes all that and converts it into a usable digital format. And officials quoted in the reports are claiming it's making a huge difference. Tasks that used to take planners maybe 2 hours are now taking just 40 seconds.
40 seconds down from 2 hours. That's an incredible efficiency claim.
It certainly could be, yeah. It's a really interesting example of AI being put to work right inside government processes. If it pans out, it could potentially cut down delays, maybe help speed up building things the public needs. But of course, it also immediately raises questions, right? About how transparent these algorithms are, who's accountable when AI influences these major public decisions.
True. That's always the flip side. Okay, finally, something maybe more down to earth that a lot of listeners might have experienced directly, a ChatGPT outage.
Yes, the sources confirm OpenAI had a partial service disruption. It affected several things: ChatGPT itself, their video tool Sora, and the API that developers rely on.
What kind of problems were people seeing?
Various things reported. Being unable to get their chat history, really slow responses. Some GPT-4 users apparently got errors saying too many concurrent requests. It seems like it lasted for several hours.
Oof. If you rely on those tools for like work or school or anything creative, that must have been pretty disruptive.
Oh, absolutely. And it really highlights a key vulnerability, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The potential fragility when we depend so heavily on these big, centralized, cloud-based AI services.
Yeah.
The takeaway here is pretty clear. As these tools become more essential to how people work, incidents like this really hammer home the need for users and businesses to think about backups, contingency plans, maybe exploring other tools, or even more local options down the line.
Yeah.
It raises a practical question. Just how reliable do these core AI services need to become before we can truly integrate them into absolutely critical systems without worry?
Wow. Okay, looking back at all that news just from Juneteenth,
Yeah.
it's kind of dizzying.
Uh-huh.
We saw innovation pushing forward that accessible hardware idea, the quantum computing ambitions, but then also these immediate, very real challenges popping up everywhere. Sophisticated scams hitting education, finance, even just frustrating service outages impacting daily users.
Right. And we saw that intense, money-fueled race for AGI among the tech giants, contrasting with the practical realities on the ground, like, China pausing AI for exams, or the UK government piloting it for planning applications, and that fundamental shift in how we might get information online via search.
It really drives home the point that AI isn't just like one single thing happening in a lab somewhere. It's this force that's simultaneously touching and starting to reshape so many different parts of life, business, society, all at once.
Yeah, stepping back from this deep dive into just one-day sources. It is truly remarkable how fast the whole landscape is changing, and across so many different fronts.
It's definitely a reminder that to really get a handle on AI today, you have to look at this whole complex picture, don't you? The tech breakthroughs, yeah, but also the huge investments, the regulatory questions, the real world impacts day to day,
Yeah,
all of it together.
absolutely. You really do.
So maybe let's leave you, our listener, with one final thought to chew on, stemming from everything we've dug into from these Juneteenth sources. As AI gets woven more and more deeply into our daily routines, into our jobs, even into the critical systems that run our society, how much control should we as individuals, as a society, realistically expect or even demand over these incredibly powerful tools and the information they process and influence?
That's a really fundamental question for all of us going forward. Well, that wraps up this deep dive into the sources you shared from June 10th, 2025. We hope you found some useful insights and maybe a few aha moments in there today.